So we've now found that the market for, let's say, for coffee has reached equilibrium. Buyers and sellers have come to an agreement that the right amount of coffee to produce is this, and at that price. There's no shortage, there's no surplus, the market has cleared. So is this, how well off does this make us? I mean, are we better off because we have a market for coffee? Is society better off? Are our rational actions to purchase coffee or to sell coffee paying dividends for us, right? Because rational actor means that we want to make sure that our benefits are greater than our costs for all the decisions we make. Well, let's take a look at how we might figure that out. Let's say at this quantity, at Q1, how much coffee was the market willing to buy? Well, I'm just going to follow this up. Not to the price line, because price isn't the willingness, that's price was what you had to pay. But demand curve was your willingness to pay. You were willing to pay this price, or all consumers were willing to pay this price for that much coffee, but they only had to pay PEQ. They were willing to pay P1, but they only had to pay PEQ. They got surplus value or surplus benefit out of the purchasing decision equal to this distance. They only paid PEQ, but they would have paid P1. They only had to pay $2.50, but they were ready to pay $5. That's great for them. That's surplus benefit. That's surplus benefit. Well, let's look at another price, Q2. Same thing. They were willing to pay P2, but they only had to pay PEQ, so they got additional benefit as well. The consumers who purchased here, or when the market purchased this much, we see additional benefit still. And in fact, if we do that all across the way, and we just sum up the additional benefit over and above the price paid, we end up with an area equal to the total amount of additional benefit over and above the price paid. This is called consumer surplus. Society as a whole has all of this additional benefit by trading their $2.50 in cash for all the coffee they wanted. Consumer surplus is the additional benefit to consumers above the equilibrium price. So you were willing to pay $5, but you only had to pay $2.50. Willing to pay $4.75, only had to pay $2.50, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way along the demand curve. We see that there's a whole bunch of consumer surplus, and that makes sense because if you didn't value something more than you were willing to pay for it, then you'd be indifferent. If you only valued coffee at $2.50, then, well, I don't care. $2.50 in my pocket, cup of coffee in my hand, either one doesn't matter. But if I value the coffee a little bit more than the $2.50, then I'd go ahead and make the purchase. And if I valued it a lot more, then it's even better for me. So because this curve, demand curve, shows us how much benefit we get from each unit we consume, we can then look at how much benefit we get and subtract from it the price we had to pay to look at what the surplus benefit is. In other words, all of this consumer surplus is what we might call bang for your buck. Bang for your buck. We can do the same thing for producers. Producers at Q1 might have been willing to sell at this price, but they were able to sell at this price. Good for them. Producers at Q2 were willing to sell at this price, but they were able to sell for that price. At Q3, they were willing to sell at this price, able to sell at that price. And if we go all the way along at all the quantities, we'll see that at all the quantities less than the equilibrium quantity, they're going to get a price higher than what they were willing to accept. In other words, all of this area in this triangle here, the red triangle, this is additional benefit to the producer. They're willing to accept all of these prices to sell those quantities. but they were able to get that price. All of this is what we call producer surplus. Producer surplus, sometimes called profit. If this is your willingness to accept a price is determined by your costs, well, if this curve reflects your costs and this is your price minus cost is profit. All of this area is profit to the producer. So the producer surplus is like consumer surplus. It's the additional benefit that the producer gets for selling particular units of a product, otherwise known as profit. At market equilibrium, we find that there is no way we can rearrange prices to get more consumer surplus or more producer surplus. At any particular price, we're going to find that the producer surplus is going to fall or at the expense of a gain in consumer surplus and vice versa. In other words, the market brings about allocative efficiency. This is where everybody is as well off as they could be.